Hello there, men, and welcome to the Masculinism Movement channel, a place for men to be men and to talk about masculinity and men's issues. I'm your host, Brian Krall, and today I'm going to be espousing to you the 10 benefits of being single. Yes, being single has benefits, in spite of the fact that it is often thought of as a bad thing. This is because it benefits society for people to get married and have families, and thus it is seen as one of the goals in life. So when a man says he is single, people are often, going to respond with something like, "Oh, well, why don't you just find a nice girl to settle down with?" Or, "Don't worry, if you keep looking, you'll find your match." Someone literally just said that to me last night. And women especially dislike the male bachelor, for that means he isn't doing what they say is the right thing for a man to do and finding a woman to provide and sacrifice himself for. But being single is actually very beneficial to the individual man and has many virtues for him. So I'd like to go over just some of them, and I picked out my top 10 for you today. The first and foremost of which is sovereignty and independence. Having full decision-making power and control over your own life and domestic situation. Whenever I have male friends who are in relationships, they aren't as good of friends to me as single male friends because they simply cannot get together with me as much as my single friends can because they have to ask permission of their girlfriends. If I was invited over to their house, it would be a very different domestic situation than mine. You could tell I love cigars and I smoke indoors in my apartment. Sometimes I will just fill this place with smoke. Not very often because I'm an athlete and I have to keep my lungs clean. But the point is that men who live with women do not get to do such a thing. In fact, the way that I have decorated this place, this is mine and mine alone to decorate as I see fit as a man. If you live with a woman, she's going to be the one in charge of decorating the place, and it's going to look much more feminine. And if you want to, do something with your own home, you need her permission. And she will oftentimes relegate, your control to a certain area of the house, which, is often called a man cave. So you only have full sovereignty and independence and control of your lifestyle when you are single. That sovereignty and independence then leads to number 2, which is freedom. Being able to do whatever you want, whenever you want to. I get to choose how I spend every single moment of my day because I do not have a partner who is partially or maybe fully in control of my schedule, who I have to ask permission from. And that's different with my male friends who are in relationships. Again, they're not in control of their schedule. They don't get to do whatever they want, whenever they want. If I decide that I want to take a day off and do something, I can do that. I don't have anyone to answer to. Again, I am completely free because I am single, whereas my male friends who are in relationships basically have someone else in control of their decision making. They do not have that freedom. And that freedom leads to number 3, which is having full mobility. Being able to go wherever you want in the world without anyone tying you to one location or holding you back from traveling. This is something that is especially, useful to me as a social scientist. I used to do a lot of traveling. I've done 2 world tours, and that's something you just can't do if you're in a relationship. Or if you're in a relationship, it sucks. It is very difficult, almost near impossible. For many people, it just doesn't work out. So when you are single, you have the freedom to move around at will. You can leave your home to go do whatever you want, whenever you want, without having to ask someone and check if it's okay with them. And you can also pack up your home and move anywhere else, and start a new home somewhere else without having, someone in your life to coordinate it with and make sure that's somewhere they want to move. But this mobility is not just about location. It is also about upward social mobility and being able to elevate yourself in the dominance hierarchy without a woman holding you down, which is exactly what they do to men in dominance hierarchies. All right, when you have a female who is financially leeching off of you, when you have a female who is restricting your freedom, who you've relegated some decision-making control over to, and who is manipulating you, this is holding you down and preventing you from achieving your full potential and status. All right, so single men have much more upward mobility than men who have females do. The next, a big one that, like many of these, most men don't consider, is mental health and emotional stability. You get this from having less conflict and drama and toxic femininity in your life. When you're not in a relationship, you may get lonely more often, but other than that, you're going to be much more mentally healthy and emotionally stable because women are obviously, as we all know, constant sources of drama and conflict. just the constant arguing. And of course, the female manipulation of your emotions and the other, toxic female tendencies are a huge emotional burden and really offset our mental health and stability as men. And these are so important in life. The stress that we get. Stress is a known killer, and the stress that we get from women is probably one of the main sources of stress. And there's all these studies showing that men who are married live longer than single men, but what we are really finding when we analyze the data is that men who are single who have never been married live the longest, and men who are single because they've been married and gotten divorced actually live less long than married men. So yeah, men who happen to have found a unicorn, back probably, before the 80s, who have been, in a traditional marriage may be better off, but maybe not. The data obviously, again, gets skewed by a feminist perspective because they're not taking into consideration the men who are divorced. And we know that females are toxic, are sources of conflict and drama, and do offset our emotional stability and mental health. All right, so you're going to be so much happier and more well-off emotionally when you are single. You may get lonely at times, but it's nothing compared to all of the emotional stress and drama that women place upon you, and how devastating that can be for your mental health and your physical health too, because there's a reason why the men who are married for their whole lives do die earlier than their female counterparts, and it's because their wives nag them to death.
Are you sure to take your daily dose of red pills consistently so that you can stay out of the matrix? The red pill is a medicine that only works if you take it in the right dosage and never miss a dose. One missed dose of red pills can mean turning back into a blue-pilled limp dick simp under the sharp heel of the evil feminist matriarchy. So make sure you are subscribed and that your subscription is set to all so that you never have to miss one of your daily doses of the red pill, because I'm releasing hot new red pill content every single fucking day just to make sure you don't have to. So make sure you will actually get notified when they are released, because you know that YouTube doesn't want to show you things that don't align with its liberal leftist feminazi agenda, and it shadow bans content creators like me who use free speech to speak out against these politics and stand up for the rights of the oppressed masses of men like you and me. And if you want to help me keep fighting the good fight, please donate using the PayPal link below so that I can keep this work alive, because I simply cannot do it without the support of viewers like you. And be sure to spread these messages and share these videos with any other men you know who could use a nice big dose of red pills.
And the next is number 5, more sexual options. All right, so if you're single, you can choose anything from celibacy to polyamory and even promiscuity. All right, you are not tied down to a single sexual partner who you are obligated to, and who you have to get all of your sexual needs met by. And what's interesting too is that earlier, I was thinking of saying, when I talked about mental health and emotional stability, that you might, not have a steady sex partner if you're single, and so you might not get some of your sexual needs met. But then I thought, well, in most of my relationships, after the honeymoon period, I got sexually frustrated because I found that, if I was being monogamous with her, I was tied to a woman who often couldn't meet all of my sexual needs. And yet I also, if I was being monogamous, I couldn't go to someone else for those sexual needs. I ended up having to just take care of them myself with porn and masturbation, which, I would often have to hide from them, because then otherwise we'd have to have a discussion about, why I'm not just having sex with her and how she's not meeting my sexual needs. And whenever I would talk to her about trying to meet my sexual needs, it was a very difficult conversation, because women are sexually extremely narcissistic, and they love to think that they are God's gift to men, and that they shouldn't have to have any sort of sexual skills in order to please a man. And there's really no easy way to tell a woman that she lacks sexual skills and needs to learn more. And, even myself as a sex educator, I always would find the best ways to have these conversations, but they were still some of the most difficult conversations I would ever have. And no matter how well I communicated about these things and how nicely I did it, the women would always respond narcissistically and act as though, they were just the best sex partner possible. No matter how bad they actually were in bed, they would always say things like, no thanks, I don't need to learn to do better, I think I'm just perfect, or something like that. And it was just a ridiculous conversation with an insane delusional narcissist who, again, thinks that she's God's gift to men. right? So I was always very sexually frustrated in my long-term relationships, but when I was single, I had so many more options about what to do about that sexual frustration. You know, it was so much better because if I wanted to watch porn and jerk off, I wouldn't have to hide it. I could watch porn that was kinky and hardcore without having to be ashamed of it. You know, if I wanted to be polyamorous or promiscuous and fuck, you know, a girl or two a day, I could do that. You know, I used to live in Las Vegas, and when I got out of the long-term relationship that I had there, I fucked 2 women a day for 5 days. I was a pickup artist back then, and, you know, that was quite the feat. And I was like, wow, you know, the sexual freedom and liberation I'm experiencing now that I'm out of this relationship is just epic. And conversely, I also studied Tantra and was a tantric shaman and monk for some time. And there were times I would practice celibacy for spiritual purposes. And women who were in my life, who I was dating or who were interested in me, always seems to not like that, right? And would always try to influence me to break my celibacy for them because they want to have sexual power over you, right? And NoFap, of course, has been trending for years now. It's something many men like to talk about in the manosphere. And obviously, you need to be single for that. You cannot practice celibacy in a relationship, you know, at least not without some very serious complications and difficulties. So I've always found it interesting that one of the biggest ways that women advocate for monogamous relationships to men is telling them that they'll be able to have sex consistently and get all of their sexual needs fulfilled. And, you know, I've had so many relationships in my life, and I've dated so much. And I found that that's just not the case. I found that you just have so many more sexual options to explore when you're single. You're going to be so much more sexually fulfilled because you have the choice to hire a bunch of sex workers to have a kinky orgy if you want to, or to, you know, go on a sex tour, right? And literally travel the world fucking exotic women, as I've done twice. Or you could go spend some time in a monastery or temple living as a celibate monk. You know, you could do whatever the fuck you want sexually when you're single, and you really cannot when you are in a relationship. You have your sexual needs basically at the mercy of the woman who, once you've committed to her, isn't going to really be putting in as much effort as when you were dating and it was the honeymoon period. And again, she probably will think that she doesn't really need to put in much effort and try to develop sexual skills to please you because she wants to think of herself as, you know, being perfect without having to do all of that. So the next, number 6, is self-centeredness, not living for anyone but yourself. When you are single, you get to be the complete focus of your reality and universe. So you end up doing so much more of the things that you want to do for yourself. And, you know, I know that self-centeredness gets a bad name. You know, being selfish in society is bad for everyone. And it's certainly not a good thing when you do it in a narcissistic and or sociopathic way, and I'm certainly not advocating that. You certainly need to have compassion for your fellow human being, all right? And you do not want to be an egomaniac. That's not mentally healthy. But when you're single, you're living for you. You're living a life that is much more self-centered, even if you are a compassionate and outgoing social being. When you're in a relationship, you have a partner who you constantly need to be considering. All right, so you are not going to be living for yourself. You're going to be living for your relationship. All right, and, you know, constantly having to think about how you're meeting the needs of your partner. And you're going to end up doing a lot less for yourself and a lot more for the female. And if you're a man in a relationship with a woman, you're going to be self-sacrificing for her. All right, so you are going to be at a loss of time, energy, money, and other ergonomic resources. You're just not going to be doing a lot of the same things for yourself that you would be doing if you are single. All right, and the same is not true for women. All right, women get to be more self-centered in relationships. Okay, so, you know, a woman will debate this from her perspective, but she's not going to be considering what it's like for a man to be in a relationship. Okay, so as a man, being single versus being in a relationship is the choice between living a life that is more self-centered versus a life that is more self-sacrificing. And being self-centered is obviously better, especially as a man, because no one else is going to be meeting your needs but you. Women do not enter relationships with men because they want a partner to fulfill the needs of. They enter them because they want a partner to fulfill their needs. Okay? So again, you're going to be at a loss. So you might as well choose to be single and live for yourself and taking care of your wants and needs, because, as I say at the end of every video, no woman out there is going to. All right, you're going to end up doing so much more of the things you want to do for yourself when you're single, which can lead to number 7, which is growth and self-actualization. All right, the ability to become your ideal self and fulfill your life's purpose and all of your goals and dreams. Something you have much more potential for when you are doing it alone. When I was young, was sold on the idea that you needed a partner to fulfill this potential, right? Because 2 is greater than 1, and you have synergy in a relationship. But after, you know, over 20 years of experience, I found that that is just not true. The opposite is actually what is true. When you're in a relationship, you are helping to fulfill the growth potential of a female and help her to self-actualize at your own expense. All right. If you want to self-actualize and grow as a man, you're going to be doing it much more alone than with a woman. In fact, most of the men I see stagnating in life are doing so because they got hitched. All of my male friends, when we were younger, we were all growing and working on ourselves and achieving our goals and dreams together. And then they got married, and suddenly their progress in life was stunted and, virtually stopped because suddenly they are having a woman hold them down. Whereas I have kept growing since then and self-actualizing because I have spent most of my adult life single. And that leads to number 8, which is happiness and fulfillment. Again, this all really works together. If you're in a relationship, you are going to be spending most of your energies fulfilling the woman who's not going to be doing the same for you. When you're single, you're going to focus on fulfilling your own wants and desires and needs and dreams and such. And you're going to be so much happier. Again, in a relationship, you might be happy during the honeymoon period, but once it's done, the happiness is really over. I mean, most married people are not happy in spite of how they present on social media. We all know from having close friends in relationships and spending actual time with them that they are not actually happy. And then moving on to number 9, longevity. As I mentioned earlier, men who never marry live longer, healthier lives due to a lack of stress and the cortisol response in the brain that stress causes. When you are in a relationship with a woman who is constantly causing conflict and drama and nagging you and having a toxic influence on you, she's causing the stress hormone called cortisol to be released in your brain, which is not healthy psychologically, but also physically as well. And these female behaviors cause actual physical tension in our bodies and toxic reactions. If you want to live a long, healthy, and happy life, being single is the only way to do it. And then last but not least, number 10 is financial savings and investments. You'll have a much better financial future without a female financial drain on your income. Women are expensive. It's not just because marriage is expensive and divorce is expensive, right? But women are gatherers. They want to be constantly buying all sorts of things they don't really need, but they just enjoy the feeling of hoarding, and they do not want to have to rely upon their own income to do so. They are looking for a man with a lot of money that they can use to build their nest with and hoard stuff with. They want to buy all sorts of outfits that they are never going to wear except for maybe on one special occasion in their life. They want to buy lots of little trinkets and doodads that they're never going to use. They want to buy lots of appliances in the kitchen even though they don't cook. Right, and then they'll never really use them, right? And people like me who cook don't really need them. When you cook, you realize you don't actually need an appliance for every little fucking thing. I was just in Walmart yesterday looking to buy a new pot to replace one that I've had for over 10 years. And I was looking at all these little things they have, like this single egg cooker and stuff. That's obviously for women who can't fucking cook. And I'm like, my God, who needs this shit? I've been cooking my whole life, right? And I use basic essential cookware and only that, always have and always will. There's really no need for it anymore. And I was like, who even would use all this shit? I know who buys it, women, but they probably don't fucking use it. Women just love spending money and buying useless shit, whereas we men understand the value of minimalism and saving and investing. And these are things that women make it very hard to do. Women simply do not understand the concept of things such as saving for retirement, because they think that as long as they have the ability to sexually attach a man to them, there's going to be, this constant source of money on tap. And if you really want to live well, it requires a certain amount of money, right? And if you want to retire and not be impoverished when you do so, you need a good amount of retirement savings and investments, and you're just not going to be able to reach the same potential when you have female financial leeches sucking your fucking livelihood from you. So those are my top 10 reasons for staying single in ways that it benefits you and why I feel I'm living my best life when I am single.
That concludes this video. Thanks for listening. I hope I mansplained that good enough for you. If you like what you heard, please click the like button, and if you feel you gained some value from this video and would like to give some back, please do so with the PayPal link below, because your support helps fund me doing this work and fight the good fight for men like you. If you are ready to take the red pill and wake up from the matrix and the matriarchy controlling it and learn everything you need to know about female on male sexism, get your copy of my newly released book called Misandry Exposed, on sale now for a special price that won't last long. So check it out by clicking the link below. And otherwise, take care of yourselves, men, because no woman out there is going to.